just in general. And then I think we'll probably have some extra questions that people brought with them.
So like I've actually been into this for my whole life, so I mean I love Wilson and just with having young kids it's hard to be able to do things and I really think that I make a good time again and I love the school. I mean I've been here since 1974, I've never moved out, so I just think it's the right time for me to do it.
Thank you.
If you weren't successful in the interview process tonight to be appointed as a new school board member, would you run in the next election?
I would definitely consider it, yes.
Any other questions? All right, what questions do you have for us? Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. I apologize. It's that vision thing, you know. Just,
Schools are always constantly under pressure with costs, increasing costs, and special programs unfunded by the state. And when it comes budget time, it's always difficult to balance that budget. How would you help balance the budget for the school?
Well, I would obviously learn some of the in and outs of events every day, but I think I'd be especially be able to set it just based on my job experience. I obviously have the factor, I know what individual work in certain areas, I know what I need, I learned from that to be able to put that together. Usually I know from the tax expense, I think a lot of the money for the school comes from the taxpayers, so they obviously have to be, taken into consideration what taxpayers want, but we also have to be able to provide what's best for our kids sometimes, and that comes out of the tax money sometimes. I mean, you don't always want to get that message, but that's, fact of life, so.
Thank you.
I have another question. So recently, definitely this school year, a big focus of ours is the whole child. So programmatically and just even academically, our approach taking into consideration all aspects of a child's well-being. I was just wondering if what would you bring to the board, or what would you like to see take place in our schools that could help focus on the whole child?
I think Wilson has a good job with programs in general, but I think, like I said, with growing up, I think we could do some of those ancillary programs that I think it's really like that, they really like the arts or like the theater, and I think music, and I'd like to be able to keep those programs, or be able to, have those for them, for those that are interested in those kind of things. Especially a lot of these, like the low tech type of things. I know people want everyone to, go to college and get a professional degree, but there's also programs out there for people that do want to do plumbing work or electrical work, and we should be able to have those programs for those things.
living in the community since 1974, probably met people moving in and out and established deep relationships. Based on the people you've talked with and your friends and the people in the community and your own information, if there was one thing really pressing you, you mentioned earlier about the arts and how you want to keep those, if there's one thing you had the ability to change in its entirety, what would that be?
I don't know if I have one particular thing I would change. I know one thing that was happening to me that I really do think we also need to do some more quality teachers. I know we've had some turnover, unfortunately, and I'd like to be able to, attract and retain those top quality teachers.
Amy?
So, part of the job is hard first thing before when that's our community members who are very committed to the event spending and the money on all things and understanding what you guys are saying. How will you go to this before and running someone after you get really happy? Or how would you go to this before and running to somebody after you do really happy? Are you prepared to have that experience? What would you say?
So I kind of have to, I do that kind of every day because we're, I think in an insurance company, we're highly regulated. So when we deliver messages like that, so you have to, just say, we've had our discussions, we feel this is the best today. So you kind of have to understand that some people are going to be very angry with you, and some people are going to be very happy with you, and you explain it. And you can't keep everybody all the time. It's a big difference, and people are upset about everything. And sometimes, unfortunately, but it's true.
Bob?
So you talked a little bit about some of the things you're concerned about, making sure that it gets saved. Is there anything the schools aren't doing that you would like to see them do?
I don't think so. I don't think there was anything that, and for example, I know that we offer like an orchestra string program, which I know is not a big deal for everybody, but I know that Concord Weiser, being the next school, does not offer any kind of string. So like, my son's a bass player. So, like, to me, that was an important thing that I don't know of anything that Wilson doesn't offer. I know when I did the tours up here, I know we offer like crime scene investigation and some very interesting programs. So I'd like to just, keep those in play for the children.
Any other questions?
I know that, I guess every person, that each have like their own, I guess, like a subcommittee kind of thing, so I'm assuming that the person you selected will have that. Do you know what that person will be doing at this point yet, or you guys are kind of revamping things depending on the candidate, or?
As a matter of fact,
Actually,
That's too bad of a question.
no, we just talked about it.
if I can find where that is.
What do you see at, like, finance, technology, there's a whole bunch of committees, services, your interest, because that's kind of where we started.
Yeah, like the student services, and I'm actually, although I'm older now, I'm actually tech savvy, so I'm not bad at the technology, and finance is what, like I said, I can learn what everyone does internally. I think I'd be able to do that just because of the reserving in the budget and I do it work. I think I'd be, an asset to any of it.
Yep, that's convenient, yeah.
I'm actually not bad. For an older person, I'm okay.
Any other questions? All right, we thank you for your time. Feel free to stay. If you want to come back, leave and come back, that's fine too, but thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rotate the votes, right?
Yes, that was, gosh, we are going to, yes. Yes, that was, John asked us
That's what
about
they did
that
last
last
time.
meeting, but that was just because we had new members
Yeah,
and
they were already ready.
be the first on everything.
Hi.
Allison, we thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank
We're
you
here
for having me.
seeking a candidate for the two-year position that is vacant on the school board at this point due to the last election.
Yes.
And we have a series of 5 questions, formal questions, and then there will be follow-up questions from the board members as they see fit. And then at the end, if you have questions for us, we'll gladly entertain those at the same time, too. We have interviews every 20 minutes until about 7:15, 7:20, and we will be going into executive session for a brief discussion. And then about a few minutes after that, we'll come back out, reconvene, and we will have our vote for the new board member. So after you're done, you're welcome to stay if you'd like. You can leave and come back, or whoever the successful candidate is, will get a phone call from someone tonight, I'd say, right? You do that tonight, if the person's not here. So,
Okay.
welcome, and thank you for your interest. We
Okay.
appreciate it. We'll
Thank
start
you.
with Mrs. Cocker.
Hi.
Hi. So my first question is, what prompted your interest in serving on the Wilson School Board at this time as opposed to running in the election, the previous election?
Okay. I've been talking about this for years and years and years, about running for school board. It just never was the right time for me, whether it be professionally, with the family. And when this opportunity came up, I thought this was the time that, and it would be perfect time to try it and see how 2 years, you have a 2-year kind of trial run, see how that goes. But it is a lifelong dream to be on the school board, and I am a graduate of Wilson, and so it was something that I wanted to serve. I was a teacher for over 20 years in the public school district, so I certainly feel qualified to serve on a school board. And it was something that I've always wanted to do, and this opportunity presented itself, and it was perfect timing with my family and where I am in my career.
Do you have in regard to our school and surrounding community?
Twofold. I think as far as the community is changing from what it used to be in the past, and I think, we need to continue to change with the changing community. With that being said, I think we also need to make sure we're meeting the needs of all the students in our schools. One of the things, for example, I think we need to do maybe a better job, not as a board, but as a school district, making the Career Center a more viable place for students to go. I think we're still, for whatever reason, Wilson, we still have that stigma a little bit that it's the tech, vo-tech. And it's really not. It's a Career Center that offers excellent opportunities for students. My nephew, for example, he went his senior year, and I don't even know that students know that that's an option, that they can just go for 1 year. He just went his senior year for half a day. He took graphic arts, and he then went to Full Sail in Florida for college, got a bachelor's degree in film and writing, screenwriting. So it was something that he didn't even know was an option, and he just kind of stumbled upon it, and it was a great opportunity for him. And there's a lot that they offer. And I think we need to give them more opportunity. Everybody, thinks, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Everybody thinks they have to go to college. With the demanding workforce, you don't necessarily have to go. We need skilled workers, and sometimes it might be a trade school or something else. And I think kids that aren't going to be successful in college, they're missing out on an opportunity that they could have had. And I think so we need to I don't know how we get over that stigma. It's not a vo-tech, it's a career center, and it's somewhere that would greatly benefit a lot of our students. I also think that we need to make sure that we're spending wisely. I think there's people in our community elderly people in particular, who are, having to sell their homes because they can't afford to pay the taxes and as they continue to rise. However, that being said, we do not have one of the highest, tax rates, so I don't feel that compared to other school districts, in fact, where I taught, Fleetwood has one of the highest tax bases, or highest tax percentages. So I think we have to balance what we need to provide for our students, balance it with the taxpayers, but also keep in mind, maybe remind the taxpayers also, that you want to make Wilson continue to be a place that people want to come to, because we want people to move in. It only helps us with the value of our homes, our property value. I mean, so we want this to be a desirable location, and we need to continue to put in programs that will enhance Wilson and have people want to come here.
You bring to the board personally?
Well, as I said, I was a school teacher in the public school district for over 20 years. My first job was at Wilson. I guess it would be 30 years or so now. I taught, it was a part-time position. I taught half day at Wilson Southern, and then the other half was actually at Central, which doesn't exist anymore. And it was in learning support, so I started my career in the special ed classroom. I taught for 10 years. Then I got the full-time position opened up at Fleetwood Area School District, so I began working there the following year. And I spent the next 20 years there. 10 of those years I spent in a learning support classroom in the high school and then in 8th grade. And then my last 10 years I spent in a regular education 5th grade classroom. So I believe that I can provide curricular-based ideas, and also I think there's special ed is one of the programs that costs the district a phenomenal amount of money, and people don't understand how much it costs the district. I remember one of my bosses once telling me, the special ed director once telling me, that anybody that has more than 1.5 children in the school district is actually putting the school in debt. And I don't know what a 0.5 child is, but point being that, and especially if it's a child with special needs. So I think that that is something that people should understand when it comes to the budget and things like that. Everybody wants to, point the blame. And I'm not saying, obviously, these are students' needs that we are required by law, not that we wouldn't want to meet them anyway, but we are required by law to meet. But I think making people aware, I think sometimes people are in the dark as to what the costs are. I think another area to consider is how much we're spending to send students out of the district, which again is a large amount of money. And I think in all of those areas, I mean, I've seen it firsthand, and I see what it does to a district, and as far as financially. And so maybe just with the the expertise I have in regular and special ed, I think I could offer that expertise. And I currently am working at it was the Greater Brooks Food Bank, now it's Helping Harvest, in their financial business department. I've never done this before, and I'm very excited to do that. So I'm getting to see the other side of a nonprofit, the financial part, and that's exciting. So I'm doing accounts receivable, accounts payable, and it's kind of seeing where the money's going, looking at budgets and things like that. And I think that also gives me some experience in that area as well.
When faced with a difficult determination, how do you go about making the decision?
Well, I always think it's a good idea to do like a pro and a con. Even if you're just doing it in your head, you don't always have to write it down. But if you have a pros and the cons, and you kind of like go through, and you're never going to make everybody happy. That's impossible. So you're going to have to figure out what you can live with, that you feel like you've done the best that you can for the community, for the students, for the staff, for the teachers. So you've done the best you can for who you're representing, which is what your job is to do. And you have to live with the decisions that you make. And so I think that is the bottom line for me, is being able to make a decision that I can live with and justify. And again, you're not going to make everybody happy. There's always going to be someone at every meeting that has something to say or a thought that is not positive.
Yeah, we've dealt with that a little bit. My final question, and I think everybody will probably tag on to that then, is there anything else you would like to share with the board, just in general, about yourself, about anything, any interests, anything that you would like us to know?
One of the things that I am passionate about is traveling. Oh, I've done some extensive traveling, and I enjoy it very much, and can't wait to take the next trip. This summer, we went to 9 countries in 14 days, so it was a marathon. It was a journey that was fast-paced. But it was, a little bit of everything, so I thoroughly enjoy it, and I truly, truly believe, I love the fact that Wilson offers those kind of programs for kids, because I really think the more we see the world, the more we see different cultures, the more we experience different things, the more we understand other people. And we might not agree with other people, we might not, what their culture is or what their beliefs are, we might not agree, might not appreciate, but at least you have an understanding. You've been exposed to other people, and you know that there's places and people in this world that are different than us, and it makes you more accepting of other people and their cultural differences.
We'll now open any other questions? Mr. Negrini?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for your interest in serving, and thank you for your 20 years in education. Just curious, what caused you to transition into a new area of a career after 20 years in education?
Okay. Unfortunately, it was not by choice. 6 years ago, I had open heart surgery, so I had to have I had an aortic valve repaired and an aortic aneurysm repaired. So I had taken time off to have that surgery. I went back the following year teaching, and it was just with being around the germs, basically, sorry. It was just the constant getting sick.
Yeah, we can.
Getting sick constantly. It was too much, and it didn't give my body enough time to recuperate fully. So it was the doctors who decided that was the best option for me. So I miss it terribly, and it was my life passion. So, but you got to make the best of it. We're moving on. We're trying new things and learning new things.
Hi.
Hi.
What do you think will be your biggest challenge transitioning, if you had this role, transitioning from community member and teacher to board member?
Well, I think it'll be difficult because I think when you go to places and people want to talk to you about what's going on and things like that, I will have to remember that they are allowed to have their opinion, and everyone has them, and it's okay. And I don't have to argue with them about their opinion. I just need to listen, because that is our role, to listen and objectively take in what they say, and then take that knowledge, for what it's worth, and then, bring it back to the board and discuss it if it has any merit. So I think that's going to be difficult, a little bit of an adjustment for me, but, certainly something that you get used to, I would assume, because I'm assuming it comes up at holiday parties. So.
When you were asked about some of your pressing concerns about the community, you mentioned that the community was changing. How do you see the community changing?
Well, I think not so. It's that the community, now that we have West and then Southern, I think there's we've closed West Wyomissing, we've closed Lincoln Park, the 2 small schools, which were, I believe, a benefit to those students because they were smaller classrooms. I understand financially why it had to be done. I do understand that, and the buildings would have been too expensive to repair and so I get the whole reasoning for closing them. I'm just simply saying, there can be, my daughter went to West Wyomissing, so when I say this, I'm saying I understand that in her class, there were challenging students, and it was a much healthier environment for the teacher to have 19 kids versus, 25. And, I think the students got more out of it when it was a smaller class size, if there were challenging students in that classroom. So I think that's where we because, now we're overloaded at some of the, when I say overloaded, it's just they're larger classrooms versus the smaller classrooms.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question that I just want to keep it consistent and ask my whole child question. So this year, we're focusing really on the whole child, not just feeding them information all day, but as a school. And we do this, okay, I don't want to give, okay. We're focusing on the whole child that's sitting in the classroom. And my question is, what could we do as a district that could emphasize not just the academics, but what could we do to really take into consideration other aspects of children's lives and make sure that we're meeting all of their needs, not just academically?
Well, I think that's a good question. I think we have sports, and then we have academics. And we do have great clubs in theater and things like that. But if you don't make those teams, it's nice to have, what I thought would be neat would be if we'd have like an intramural sports where it's not necessarily, you didn't make the team, you didn't make the team, because they do this in college. They have intramural sports. You don't have to be on the baseball team in college. You can be playing intramural baseball. And I think there's the opportunity for kids who just want to have fun, who just want to play, who just want to be doing something with their friends. I think those opportunities, I think it's great when they have like the bingo nights and things like that, where parents and families can get together and do something together. We used to have, when I was a club advisor, we had actually sleepovers it was a lock-in, and that was pretty neat. The kids all were locked in overnight. We had a dance, we played, you had a dance, we played games, basketball, in the gym, you did all that kind of stuff, tons of food, a movie, and the kids really, really enjoyed that. So I think more opportunities for kids to just be kids and have fun, after-school activities where they're just having fun. It's not competitive, it's just an area where they get to just be kids and have fun. And I think with the stress that kids are under right now, that's really important to give them time to laugh, to really laugh. I think we forget to laugh.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Allison,
Yes.
Are you, what side of the district are you on?
I live in Southern.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, from a southern perspective, do you want to talk a little bit about it as a community member? What folks in the southern part of the district talk about it all with any indifference at all, or differences in equality? Because that's one of our big pushes, is getting both sides of the district
Yes.
equal.
Yes.
And maybe where you could, some of your ideas that you could bring to the table about that.
I think it's a tricky situation because I do know people who have in fact gone to see you about the differences in the southern west situation. I think there are absolutely differences in there. I don't think anybody can really deny the differences just in the way the buildings look, the way that they're maintained, the tracks, we've talked about that before. There's clear differences. However, I personally think Dr. Burnham is awesome. I know not everybody would agree with that, but I love that he stands out there and you're not messing around. It was so funny when I started driving. I'm sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. But when I started driving my daughter to 9th grade, I said, that must be a West parent. That must be, because Southern parents were moving. Those kids jumped out of that car because you don't mess around. he keeps it moving. He has rules and he sticks to his rules, and he's very fair. I believe he's very fair, and he needs to be. He definitely needs to be. I don't know the population of West because my child did not go to West. She's now in the high school. She's a junior. She went to Southern. So I can tell you he definitely needed to have rules, and he definitely needed to be more regimented. Whether that works at, being less regimented works at West, I have no idea. I don't have a child that went there. I think a school is made up of the people who are in it. I think the teachers make Southern a great school. And I think they were great teachers, and my daughter got a great education there. So I can speak for that. I do understand where people are talk about a dress code, and I think those, though they are absolutely right, and when they complain about the difference in the dress code, I feel that that should be the least of our concerns, but they have a right to their opinion, that that's an important issue, that their daughter can't wear shorter skirts or whatever, than they can at West.
That's
But
everywhere, by the way, that issue.
yeah. So, I mean, I think the important issues, I think just because something isn't exactly the same doesn't mean it's not fair for both places. So what works at Southern might not work at West. What works at West might not work at Southern. So, I don't think they have to be equal. They just have to be fair. Now, I do think, since I have my 2 cents for a second, I do think there are some activities that are offered at West that are not offered at Southern that I'm not sure how they have even been able to justify them up to this point, like field trips and the differences in is it the field day activity where they go to that camp or something? I mean, the parents talk about that a lot. Not the camp that they go to, sleepover camp, but it's some other where it's a day activity. We have to pay for it. Does anybody know? Do you know what I'm talking about? They only do it at West, and it's not even offered at Southern. That I'm not sure how they even got away with. But that being said, other than that, I don't really, I don't know that they have to, every single thing has to be equal. I just think it needs to be fair to both groups.
If you're not, go ahead.
It's funny when you say they, because I still talk in third person sometimes that, like, I'm not on the board. They would be you.
Yeah,
It's just
okay.
like, but, and the rest of the school district. But it's just, well,
If you're not the successful candidate in tonight's interviewing, do you plan to run in the next election?
Yes. Yes.
Are there any other questions? Do you have any questions for us?
No, and I appreciate your time and that this opportunity arose, and I was able to come in and talk to you tonight.
Well, we thank you for your interest in serving on the board.
Thank you.
And again, you're welcome to stay through the rest of the interviews or come back a little bit after 7, where we'll be coming back in and voting.
Okay.
And if
All
a
right.
successful candidate's not here when we vote, a phone call will be made to that person.
Okay, so like 7:15-ish?
Around there, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Thank you very much for
Thank you.
your interest. We're looking to fill
Yes.
until the next election. We have 5 questions this evening that are written down, but we will have multiple follow-up questions throughout, and then we'll give you an opportunity to ask us some questions also. So
Sounds good.
Thanks again for your interest, and I'll turn it over to Mrs. Cocker.
Appreciate it.
Hello.
Hi.
So what prompted your interest in serving on the Wilson School Board at this time as opposed to running in the previous election?
So I've thought for a long time about what I could give back to education. Both of my parents were teachers. I didn't think it was a profession that would fit me. For but I really enjoy the experiences that my kids have had. I think anybody who's going to be any part of education, whether it be the board, superintendent, a teacher or school bus driver, should be somebody who really cares about kids and their future and what they can bring to them. So I know that, my strengths kind of lie in, having an MBA, being like strategic planning, budgeting, those kind of areas, kind of collaborative decision-making. So I thought that, something I thought about for a long time, but before, my schedule with my job included a lot of travel. So I didn't think it was fair to run for a position where I wouldn't have the time to attend the meetings that, people in the community asked me to attend. So if I didn't have that dedication to it, it wasn't appropriate at the time. So once this came up and my job recently changed, it made sense that I had the time to give back in that regard.
Okay, great. What pressing concerns do you have in regard to our school and surrounding community?
I think the biggest challenge is obviously always going to be a resource challenge, for any organization. Obviously, such a huge percent of the budget is, already set in terms of, contracts and legacy costs and so forth like that. So I think it's always developing, what are those other opportunities for resources, beyond that. I think it's important that, I don't come with any kind of one agenda item. I come from a desire to kind of serve the community, serve the students. So I think looking beyond, maybe just traditional areas of revenue and growth beyond that.
Sorry. And what skill sets would you bring to the board? I know you kind of just brushed over some of this, but.
Well, obviously, having a business background, having worked for both small and large businesses, I have a lot of experience in budgeting, a lot of experience in strategic planning, developing plans for the next, 5, 10 years for organization. The department I lead now, I work at Penske, is actually focused on customer service and customer responses. How do we deal with 65,000 inquiries a year from our customers? And I think working with a school district, you have a really diverse customer set. You obviously have the students who are obviously consuming the education. You have the taxpayers who are paying for the education. You have the teachers who are delivering the education. So you actually have multiple customer sets. I think it's a very difficult balance. But I think if you can get, create plans that benefit all those parties and get them in harmony, you can really create successes for them. So I think you kind of realize, if your number one goal is to kind of help advance the students, help them move forward, and you can create that buy-in across the board, then you're kind of golden.
And when faced with a difficult determination, how do you go about making a decision?
I think you want to get as much, collaboration with the people who are involved in that decision, as much feedback as possible. I mean, those people who are involved with that decision, they're the ones that are going to have to live it, breathe it, experience it over the next, several months or years. So just making sure you have the opportunity for all those people to give feedback in multiple ways, whether that be in some cases electronically, in person, writing, whatever that is, make sure you have the opportunity to give all those people feedback. And then once you get all that, make your decisions that are, evidence-based decisions, not emotional decisions. And then also do a good job of explaining to each one of those customer bases, what is, why did you make this decision? How did you change that decision based on the input that they had, and communicate that out at all different levels. Yep.
And then last question before we open it up for everyone's personal inquiries. Is there anything else you would like to share with the board, just in general?
I would say, number one, I like problem solving. That's one of the things that really appeals to me. So I think being a part of a board that, any board obviously has multiple people on who have diverse backgrounds. I think kind of bringing those backgrounds together to solve a problem, to me, in a collaborative environment is really inspiring and energetic. And so I think I like the opportunity to kind of assist with that for our students and for our community.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Any questions? Any questions?
Well, I have a question, but I don't want to ask another question. Okay. My own personal question that I bring
Sure.
to the interview is, so this year we're focusing on the whole child. And just kind of what does that mean to you from our standpoint as a board, but also just in the classroom, what does that mean to be really caring about the whole child?
No, I think that's a great question. I think back to 12 years ago when my wife and I were looking to decide where we were going to buy a home and establish roots. I grew up in Wyomissing. Both my parents taught at Muhlenberg, so I had some small school perspective, kind of mid-sized school perspective. It was really important to me to find a district that had lots of opportunities for our future children. At that time, I didn't know if they were going to be girls or boys or whatever they were going to be. I didn't know if they were going to be cheerleaders or soccer stars, whatever the case was. So I wanted to find a district that had lots of opportunities for them. Obviously, first and foremost, academics were very important. So to find, obviously, a district that had a good, stellar academic reputation was number one. But beyond that, I was a pretty decent student in high school, but there wasn't one morning I woke up and said, I can't wait to get to trigonometry class this morning. That was never the reason I was excited to go to school. I was excited to go to school because I was going to see my friends. I was going to play on a district championship soccer team. I was going to be in the school musical in the spring, and get to perform in front of 400 people, which I've never had experience like that. Whatever those opportunities are, I think it's important for a school district to have that great balance, and that's obviously why we chose Wilson, because they had that great balance of obviously curriculum and extracurricular sports, everything like that. And I think getting as many students involved as many of those opportunities, I think should be the goal of us. I know that not every student is maybe as lucky as my kids are, but I think plenty of studies done that kids stay out of trouble and all that kind of stuff if they are involved. So whatever their passion is, that we can identify that and create an opportunity for that and deliver that is what we should always be striving for.
Thank you.
Great.
If you're not the successful candidate from tonight's interviews, do you see yourself running in the next election, or?
Possibly. Again, I think would obviously make sure that I'll make sure it fits with my job and personal life. Again, if it's something where my job changes and I'm going to be traveling, I don't want to commit to something that I can't fulfill the obligations for, if that makes sense. So that being said, I'm not doing this because I have a specific agenda item or something like that. It's because I want the opportunity to give back. If 2 years from now I feel like I'm not giving 100% to it, or I don't feel like I've given value to it, I'm more than fine with walking away. I want to do what's right for the students and for the rest of you who are going to be committed to be here long term, and obviously for the administration and so forth. So 2 years, if it's not a fit, I'm more happy to walk away.
Thank you. Any questions? Go ahead, Dr. Kennedy.
So, a lot of times when you're at a grocery store or
Mhm.
other place, you'll meet people, and I really was surprised when I became a school board member at how many people didn't want you to spend any money ever, and at how many people would walk up to you and say, no, you have to do this and you have to build this, or how will you deal with that pressure from so many people who see you out and about?
No, I think you first of all, you want to thank them for their concern and their passion. I think what you worry about is the people who don't care one way or the other. I think it's great that they obviously have it. So I appreciate, first of all, say thank you for taking the time to voice that this is what is really concerned about you. I think the other key to keep in mind is you're talking about, 6,000 students, hundreds of staff, tens of thousands of taxpayers. So I think it's putting all those pieces of the puzzle together. So absolutely, I appreciate your insight, and also make sure that too, that, no matter if it's what the issue is, make sure, hey, are you following the right kind of chain of command? As a school board member, I don't want to be solving the disciplined child with your kindergartner. That's not my role, but I can refer you to, a great principal at Shiloh Hills who can definitely would be willing to take your call and have a discussion with you in a one-on-one meeting with you, and, make them aware of all the resources that Wilson has, and also make sure they're all aware of all the benefits that we have. I know, I love every Thursday we get the Bulldog Blitz. It tells so many great stories about, students that you would have never heard otherwise. Oh, so-and-so won a statewide poetry contest, or, hey, this weekend we're doing Les Miserables, come out and enjoy it. I think that as many people as can be aware of all the different opportunities and success stories that Wilson has, as many ways as we can communicate that to people, it's only going to kind of grow their love and passion for the district. Yes, sir.
You're, based on your address, you're at the epicenter of the redistricting that happened. Do you want to talk a little bit about, I mean, so you have a unique area that you might be able to talk a little bit about the concerns of the citizens
Sure.
of
I'm sorry,
the
I might
southern
get-
area of our district and also the west area of our district.
Okay.
And some things that you, maybe some ideas that you have on how to make things a bit more equitable, whether that's perceived or real.
I would say I'm not concerned about one-size-fits-all education or one-size-fits-all building. I'm more concerned about one-size-fits-all opportunity. So to me, as long as Wilson's providing the same opportunity to students no matter where they live or what school they go to, that's what should be everybody's priority focus. You know, if you're concerned because I think this building's 20 or 30 years older than the other one or something like that, that's not the same. I'm more concerned about what's the quality of the people in that building, teaching them, how much do they care about my student, how much do they care about my daughter, what opportunities are they going to give her beyond the classroom. So as long as we get fair and communicate that, I think that's what's most important. You know, I personally, I guess when the first redistricting happened, I heard people say, like, you know, they were concerned about it, but, you know, having experienced it and having my first student go through it, I don't have any issues with it whatsoever, and I don't think it's something that at least my current neighbors currently speak about with me. I think they have a great opportunity to succeed, you know, where they are right now. And just like my daughter has friends at West right now that she had at Spring Ridge last year, they still communicate, they still get involved in activities outside of school. So I think those bonds will still exist, and, you know, in 3 years when they come to the high school, they'll be there again, so.
Thank you. Anyone else? Do you have any questions for us?
Sure, 2 questions, if you guys have time. Am I close? Maybe. I would say, you know, first of all, you know, and again, whoever wants to answer this, how do you see the district being different, you know, 10 years down the road? I know it's a very broad question, you know, but.
Can I answer that?
Oh,
This
he's gonna answer.
feasibility study
All
that
right.
we're about to do is going to let us all
Right.
know that.
I think curricularly, at least I can speak as the chair of the curriculum committee, that even in the past year, we're in a much better place than we were. And we're moving towards, as Steph said, towards the whole child. And I think that is going to be an incredible benefit. And in 10 years, it will be really interesting to see, because we'll be able to see our first full groups of our first cohort of whole children go through, and to see how successful they are. And I can tell you, if we continue on this trajectory that we're at, that I'm very excited to have a kindergartner in this whole child cohort.
Judge Bailey, anything you want to add?
I think 10 years from now, as you probably are aware, the demographics of our Wilson community
Sure.
have certainly changed a lot over the course of even the past 3 years since
Yeah.
I started. And I think you'll see more of a focus on educational equity, programmatically working to increase the knowledge of our staff in teaching children that they may not have taught in the past in terms of instructional strategies. I think you'll see a unified school district in terms of unity of purpose, looking at academics as one of the criteria of success, but obviously focusing on the mental health issues that currently exist in our world of K-12 education, more of a focus on the child, the affective side of how we view things, increasing the opportunity of students to engage in fun activities in the classroom, really changing that paradigm to continue to make Wilson the destination district
Yeah.
that it currently is,
Sure.
but even more so. I think in the next 10 years, you'll see an environment where, because of the work of this board, recruitment and retention and our human resources is going to be a strong focus moving forward. Student voice entering into the conversation of what school looks like, feels like, and is like moving forward. So just a few of the things that I think in the next 10 years we will be there.
That's great. Yeah, I think you realize that, I think that's all positive, and I think you also realize that, schools can't do everything. Again, getting involved in my daughter's classroom, you realize there are so many students that are lacking some kind of support, whether that be financial, emotional, whatever. And you realize schools can't do everything, but I think if you can draw those connections to those other services, social services that exist, and encourage them to take advantage of it, it only makes learning environment better for that, not only that child, in my opinion, but also the teacher and also even the other students in that classroom, because they all come more prepared, ready to learn, and not dealing with some issue they bring into the classroom and distracts them. So I think it's fantastic. That's great.
Did you have another question?
Oh, yeah, so one other question. I mean, obviously, any board that you're a part of, you have, multiple individuals that come to that. I was wondering if maybe some of you can speak to what do you view as the strengths of the board as it is, and maybe if there's an area or two that, might be lacking or, needs some development.
This is my second meeting.
I've asked some tough questions, sorry.
So I would actually say that's kind of a strength, is that we have 3 members that are a little more seasoned, that have been here 4 more years.
Don't say old, I know you want to say seasoned.
No, because they're not. Age-wise, it's not. It's just experience-wise. Yeah, that have been here for 4 more years.
Sure.
And then there's 3 of us that were here, or this is our second year.
Okay.
And then there will be 3 newer members from this past election / this interview process. So I think that's a really interesting, we have the experience and the history there, and then we also have some fresh ideas, and we kind of all, I think we all balance each other well from the first and second meeting that we've had so far. But no, I think the balance is there with, years of experiences versus kind of getting our feet wet. So,
That's fantastic.
yeah.
I think we all, we struggle with what to do, what's best, how we financially fund it, what do we want to do for this group of students and this group of students to bring them together. But, I always say that and I see this in the board we have now, not boards haven't in the past, but the 8 of us together and then the new person, making decisions that are tough, but doing what is best for the students and still being fiscally responsible. But I've always said from my years in education that if I can go home at night, I know I'm not going to make everybody happy. If I can go home at night and lay my head on my pillow and say, I did what's best for children, I'm going to be able to sleep.
That's your priority, number one.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I want to answer that also. As a new person, as one of the newbies, what I have found so far is that I know you mentioned that you love problem solving and you like to collaboratively solve problems. I find that this board is really welcoming and open to different perspectives and new ideas, and has been incredibly supportive in this sort of new process for those of us who would be new, and for me who is new. So I really appreciate that, and I think, and I too really enjoy being a part of a cohesive unit to make decisions and to bring in my perspective and to feel comfortable doing that. And I have felt that way in this board. So.
Anyone else? All right. Well, we want to thank you for taking the time and showing the interest in the school board.
Yeah,
As the night unfolds, we have one more interview.
Sure.
And then we'll be going to executive session for a few minutes, but then we'll be coming out and taking a vote this evening. You're more than welcome to stay.
Okay.
You can leave and come back around 7:15, and if you're not here and you are the successful candidate, someone will be giving you a call tonight.
I'll stick around, but hey, on my behalf, thank you. I know somewhat of a thankless job, but thank you guys for all you do, no matter what decision you make, either way. I really appreciate all you guys do on behalf of my daughters,
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we want to thank you for your interest in open position on the school board. It is a 2-year position. As of the election a few weeks ago, we are interviewing tonight. You are the final candidate. And after your interview, we will be taking a recess and then coming back in and having a vote and discussion, if there is some. And so we have 5 questions that we'd like to lay out in front of you.
Okay.
And then there will be follow-up questions from there. And then we'll give you time to ask us questions, too.
Okay,
So,
great.
Thank you again for your interest. Mrs. Cocker?
Mr. Reimer, what prompted your interest in serving on the Wilson School Board at this time as opposed to running in the previous election?
I was aware of the election and the opening in the election. However, I do know Bob Schneider, and he was actually running, so I wasn't going to run to oppose him. And then I found out at a later point that actually there was this opening. I guess I'm assuming someone had left the area, something like that. So the 2-year appointment then came up.
We did have a candidate, or I'm sorry, a board member that vacated the seat 8 months into it last time because she moved.
Right.
And then we had someone that, when you fill the position, you're only in until the next election.
Sure.
And then,
Yeah.
which leaves us with the 2-year term.
Mhm.
You won a 2-year seat and a 4-year seat.
Okay.
You can only sit in one seat.
Clone you.
You don't get disqualified until you're sworn in for a 4-year seat. So that's how, basically, the night of the swearing in is when that seat technically becomes vacant.
Okay.
What pressing concerns do you have in regard to our school and surrounding community?
As far as pressing concerns, for me personally, I'd like to get more involved in the community. But as far as concerns, I don't see any pressing right now. I do have some questions a little bit later on I'd like to ask with regards to the financial audit from last year. I do just have a couple questions to see what direction you guys are going in and what the goals of the board members are.
And what skill sets would you bring to the board?
I have extensive background in large projects right now. So I'm familiar with doing large capital projects. And I think it's, I went through some of your information. So your Guaranteed Energy Savings Act and the Energy Services Company. I see you have a lot of projects out there that you're going to be running. I think I can assist a lot with the bid process on that end. Again, I do a lot of large projects that are bid out to contractors. I recently finished a job over the last 4 years that was about $90 million. So it was pretty extensive, several different contractors. So I think I could bring that skill set to help out. I'm also starting to develop a new role in my company on sustainable energy. So I know that sustainability is the big buzzword right now in the communities for large businesses. So I know that would be a large part of the school district to try to reduce costs.
When faced with a difficult determination, how do you go about making a decision?
Well, I think it's important to make those decisions as a collaborative effort. And, I mean, everybody has a point of view when it comes to making decisions. I think collaboration is key. I think you need to be open-minded and listen to what other individuals have to say. And I think by moving forward in that direction, they'll help you come up with the best decision. However, we all understand there are difficult decisions sometimes that you have to make, and I think it's important to make those decisions and to try to make the right ones.
Okay, thank you. And the last question before we open it up for everyone, is there anything else you would like to share with the board about yourself, just in general?
Just in general, I've lived in Berks County for almost 12 years now. I'm originally from Northeast Pennsylvania, so born and bred in the coal region. I moved to New Jersey, lived in New Jersey, worked in New York and New Jersey, so it's a little bit more hustle and bustle up that way. Things are a little bit slower, but I've enjoyed living here. I think my son is a freshman now in school here. Enjoy public service. I'm on the board for the Berks County Solid Waste Authority. I've been on that for several years. I think your auditor may have done this report, John Pagerly, or may have been involved in this. So I'd like to try to get more involved in the community, and I think this is a perfect opportunity.
Questions? Dr. Kennedy?
Sure.
I see you went to Will. I actually have two questions. My first one's fun. I see you went to Will. Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Bishop Hoban, which is now Holy Redeemer.
You were off my minute.
Oh, why? Where did you
I
go?
went to Myers.
Oh, boy. Well, it's all one school now, though. They combined them all.
I can't talk about that. You just have to promise me we'll never have a big school consolidation like that. I actually went to their board meetings and talked about that.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
So my real question is, if you're at the Giant Markets or, I don't know, Lowe's or, I don't know, at a restaurant, and
Mhm.
someone comes up to you and says, don't ever spend any money, we can't, you're stealing homes from seniors,
Mhm.
they don't want you to spend any money, but then you turn and around the corner and you see the next person that says, don't cut Chinese, or don't cut any of our sports. How are you going to deal with the community's requests from you, and there's a lot of them?
Well, I don't think that's the environment to answer those questions. So I would ask for them to follow through the procedures and come to the public meetings and ask those questions at the public meetings. But I'd be cordial about it. A little bit more on my background. I actually ran the environmental program for UGI, and we have old contaminated sites. We have about 50 of them throughout the state that we clean up. So I think it's even more difficult to go to someone's property and say, oh, by the way, can we have access to your property because it's contaminated? So that gets a little bit difficult too. So I've been through a lot of public meetings and different things like that, or out in the public where you do get asked certain questions.
Okay. Whole child question. So this year, we are really focusing, and hopefully, this year and the future, are really focusing on our students as focusing on the whole child. So I was just wondering what programs or what aspects of the school system would you support, and do you think are important to really focus on the whole child, not just the academics?
Not just academics, but the sports programs?
Or that's up to you. Open-ended.
Yeah, I think I know Wilson, when I moved here, it was, well, if your son is an athlete, you want to send him to Wilson, and I understand that. However, I think there's a lot more things that are more important to make someone well-rounded. Obviously, my background's in environmental science. My son's involved in astronomy and science. He likes a lot of those programs. So I think it's important to fund those programs and make sure that the students who are looking for that outlet or that understanding or learning opportunity, that those programs are still funded in there.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? What questions do you have for us? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Negrini?
Thank you for your consideration in serving. How did you get involved with the Berks County Solid Waste Authority as a board member, and what do you believe, based upon serving those last 5 years, how that may correlate or may be different than serving on a board of public education?
I got involved with the Solid Waste Authority through a friend who I met here when I moved to Berks County. He had talked about it, that there was an opening. I had interest at the time to get more involved in the community. I had a background, I mean, we're talking about waste, so being in the environmental field, I have a lot of relationships at the DEP. Work with a lot of different folks in a lot of different capacities there. So I think that collaborative effort that I talked about earlier is important. Our Solid Waste Authority has a very good board. There are debates on occasion. We're currently going through a lawsuit with Mascaro Brothers right now, and fees that are associated with waste coming to Conestoga landfill. So there's been some difficult decisions on that end. We recently had a real difficult decision we had to make, which I'm not going to talk about here. But again, that collaborative effort, I think I have a lot of experience with that, and I think it's really important to listen and make decisions based on an open-mindedness.
Do you see any conflicts of interest at all with the boards that you're on and being on this board?
I don't see any now. Mm-mm. Not unless you own a landfill.
We had a Superfund site here years ago, up in Charlotte Hills.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
We was part of that process.
Yep, the old landfill. I know some of the attorneys that actually had worked on that. Mhm.
Any other questions from anyone up here? What questions do you have for us?
I guess, let's see. I guess the one question I had, just reviewing some of your information, have you ever considered converting your fleet to compressed natural gas? And I'm not doing that as a business thing right now. I'm just wondering if you've ever looked at that. Right now, getting involved in the whole sustainability outlets
We
and,
outsource our transportation. I'm
Okay.
sorry. Our contracts for fuel, I'm sorry, our fuel.
yeah,
So we
right.
get them.
But you own the buses.
Right, right.
Mhm.
But we normally have a fairly reasonable, cost for that, which really, I don't know what the cost conversion would be, to be honest. You have to do a cost study, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a significant cost savings to do that, and I think I don't know if you can apply for any type of grant money that's out there through the DEP to convert your vehicles. It's becoming pretty popular right now.
So I can answer the question from the
Okay.
Superintendent's chair. I do have experience in looking at that issue in the Dauphin County area and in the Boyertown area. One of the complications is the fueling site and where that facility would be, and would it be feasible to travel the distance to fill, so.
Yeah, there's
The
a curiosity
conversion-
on this.
The conversion of the current fleet, obviously, our current transportation buses over to the compressed natural gas would be quite expensive, but however, if you were to purchase new and phase that in over time, it is a benefit. So that's
Correct. Right.
something that is on the radar, so to
Okay.
say.
All right. Let's see. I had talked a little bit about Guaranteed Energy Services Act. So, what's involved with the district-wide feasibility study that's being done?
Let me answer that.
That would be great.
The board asked the administration to conduct a comprehensive feasibility study of the entire district. So that takes into account all of the facilities. It looks at the MEPs, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, and what, over the course of the next 10 years, would be needed at those facilities. It also looks and goes into some depth about demographics and enrollment, using 3 different sources to determine the growth for the district over the course of the next 10 years. It looks at academic offerings and construction within the confines of each one of those buildings to meet the needs of what we would call flexible use space and 21st century learning. things are different, with technology. It also looks at, there are 4 or 5 different options in terms of configuration of student grades.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
it's very, very complex,
Very high level.
very high level.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And that study will be coming out in January. We'll have a work session in January where it'll be open to the
Great.
public.
Okay.
Anything else?
I think that's it on my end, if you guys.
Well, we want to thank you for
Anybody
your
has
interest in
any
the position.
questions?
And like, as we said, we will be adjourning after your interview here for a few moments, and then we'll be returning and voting on a candidate. So
Okay.
You're welcome to stay, and if the chosen candidate is not here, someone will make a phone call to that person tonight.
Okay, great, thank
So
you.
thank you very much
Thanks
for your time. Motion to adjourn? Mr. Martin? First of all, I want to thank all four of you for staying around and for your interest and putting yourselves out there. Each of you brings a unique perspective and a unique background to what the board is already bringing. So I thank you for your interest. And again, those of you that are not chosen tonight, we please run in the election. We need people that have diverse backgrounds and really want to see what's best for the community. So with that said, do we have a nomination? Shauna?
I'll nominate.
Mrs. Cochran?
I just don't want to say the wrong, hang on one second, sorry. Mr. Sean McCray.
Is there a second?
Mr. Hart?
Shonda?
I'll second that.
Mr. Negrini, second. There'll be a voice vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. McCray, congratulations. We thank you for your interest. And next week is the next board meeting, and we will have you sworn in at next meeting. If you'd like to bring a family member or your family with you, they can hold the Bible for the swearing in, and then you'll be seated for the board. So, thank you. And again, thank you to everyone. So, motion to adjourn?
Motion.